pass the joint. Let's have a spliff. Let's have a bit of the wacky backy. Hello and welcome to another podcast with Paul. I'm your host, Paul, and as always, unedited, unscripted, natural native English conversation. So today I have some notes, trying to look professional again. I have some notes, right? Marijuana, we've all heard about it. Some of us have even tried it. It's really popular nowadays. It seems to never go out of fashion. Now, why is it so popular? Why is it so sought after? Why is it always looked for? Why is it sometimes in the press? All right. And what is it? Well, what is it? Marijuana? Where does it come from? What is it? So it has a couple of other names like cannabis, marijuana, and there's different derivatives of it. There's different strains of it, different types of it, CBD and CBD oils and things like this. Lots of different words associated with marijuana. And I'm not an expert, so I can't tell you exactly what every bit is. I do know that they say it comes from the hemp plant, and this plant has been in existence for a long time. It's been a very resourceful and used plant for like making clothes and making rope and things like this, making jeans. So this hemp plant has been around for a long time and is a very versatile plant. Right. So often cannabis and marijuana and that is connected and linked with teenagers and their rebellious nature, trying to push back against authority, whether it's the police or their teachers or even just us parents, rebellious teenagers trying to do their thing, trying to be different to everybody else, Well, now I suppose there's two kinds of attitudes, whether it should be quashed out, pushed out and eradicated, or whether we should allow, and whether it's healthy to allow teenagers or young people to be a bit rebellious, to have that strike out on their own, to find themselves and be creative and be themselves. Often you don't see that behavior in other cultures. It tends to be more the Western culture that you get that big rebellious streak. That's accepted as normal. All right. So we accept that when a teenager starts being rebellious, that's normal behavior and is often tolerated. So how important is it to experiment in your youth? Experiment with your sexuality, experiment with maybe drugs, experiment with, food, cultures, just projecting yourself, whether it's through your car, your motorbike, your makeup, your personality, whether you're a rocker or whether you're an emo or whether you like motorcycles or mods or any number of different types of way to express yourself and to project who you are out into the world. I guess that's got to take some exploration. And many cultures feel that this is a coming of age and would have to experiment a little bit to find where you fit in or feel where you want to be, especially in your younger years, your youth. We all do crazy, silly, rebellious things in our youth. Don't even ask me about my rebellious youth. I was a challenging individual. Not really into fighting, because I'm a small build. I wouldn't often come out very well, and I liked my face. But often in other areas, I could be quite challenging. Some of that was because of my upbringing. Some of that was because I don't like authority. Many different reasons. But where do you draw the line? What is not tolerated in your culture? What is not accepted in your country? Let me know down in the comments. Often we'll see in other cultures the short-temperedness of the parents, or gaining that respect. You know, especially years ago, I was hit as a child, you know, and there's lots of good reasons and bad reasons for why we hit children years ago, but not now. I can understand the reasons behind it. I think we've educated ourselves as a culture, and we've grown a little bit more. And, well, I think that's the theory anyway. I'm not sure if it works 100% in practice, but the theory is that we're more educated and have different tools and things available to us now to communicate what is our boundaries and what's accepted and not accepted with our youth. So that's kind of much the Western culture. But when I observe other cultures, you know, and the youngsters will be pushing back against the authoritarian attitudes of their parents, and the youngster would be maybe getting a bit verbal, mouthing off back to their parent, and the parent would raise a hand and the child or the young person would go, okay. So it's kind of accepted that a young person knows their parent could threaten them with a quick smack at the back of the head with the hand, or some kind of threat of violence towards them, is one way of helping them maintain a level of respect and that line in the sand. And that's different cultures do things differently. And we see it even mocked on the TV and in adverts. But generally in the West, it's frowned upon to be aggressive or violent towards younger people. Now, like I said, the theory is, you know, that we educate ourselves more, we have more tools, we have more opportunities, we have a different growth. The same as compared to the, I don't know, 18th century when we would send children up the chimneys or send children to the workhouse, you know, and children and women were not respected or not, they were a lot more oppressed. You know, there's a lot more tyranny towards children and women. Don't even ask about disabled people, because obviously back then it was different rules, different standards. It was a different time altogether. So now in the 2020s, it is accepted in the West that you shouldn't use violence or aggression or threats of aggression towards the youth. Like I said, that's the theory. Whether it works or not, I don't know. I have been to other countries, I have seen other cultures, and I see the respect, instant respect from a younger person compared to in a Western country, in my own country, how there is little to no respect. But we're getting off topic. We're talking about cannabis, marijuana, and the rebelliousness of young people. At what level should it be tolerated? But marijuana as a whole seems to be a big industry. Okay, you can buy a bong and inhale all the smoke. You can buy shotties, you can buy grinders, you can buy all sorts of paraphernalia, extra large rolling skins, rolling papers, rolling mats, many interesting and colourful paraphernalia and ancillaries for consuming marijuana. Now, it's interesting how as a young man, I experimented with marijuana, and I think that I came to the point where I matured and grew past it and tried other things. No, not other drugs, but tried other things, you know, like alcohol, and then I liked motorbikes, and then I was chasing women, that kind of evolution. But we all know that in society there's different kinds of people. And unfortunately, sometimes there are people that have addictive personalities. Now, I must confess, I'm one of those personalities. I tend to go all guns blazing on the one thing I'm focused on for quite a while until I feel the detrimental effects. And then I think, oh no, this is bad, I need to change it. And so I move on to the next thing. But when I was a young man, or not even that long ago, before I was, a vegan, I could quite easily eat lots and lots and lots and lots of chocolate bars and lots of Coca-Cola. The amount of sugar I could consume because I was addicted to sugar was crazy. I even was so concerned that I spoke to my doctor and asked him for a test if I was addicted to sugar, or not if I was addicted, if I was stuck on needing all this sugar. Maybe I had a low insulin levels or something like this. And he tested me and he said, no, you're not diabetic or have any problems with sugar at all. It's like, wow, the amount of sugar I consumed was amazing. Probably a pound of sugar a day wouldn't be a problem. I'd easily eat 5, 6, 7 Mars bars or Snickers bars. Crazy. Right, again, off topic again, Paul. Focus. Marijuana. Right, well, my point is addictive personalities, and I'm putting my hands up and humbling myself and saying, look, I've been that addictive personality. And it was the same with cigarettes and the same with cannabis as a young lad. But it's different in different cultures, that people express themselves and venture out in different ways. But it's interesting how we look at it in other countries. So, for example, Amsterdam, famous for its cafes and cookies and pizzas and soups and all the things you can have in Amsterdam that are not illegal. And then you look at other things like Portugal and I think it's Israel. Forgive me if I'm wrong. Tell me in the comments. Portugal and Israel, where they take all the money that they would spend on criminals or what would be criminals from the drug industry, especially those that are suffering, and they put it all into rehabilitation and education and support, because it's often the people that are on the bad end of the stick is often the people at the lower end of society that are struggling with their mental health, struggling with the situation they find themselves in, and then get penalized and oppressed by authority to say, oh, you're a drug dealer, you're no good, you're this, you're that, you're a drug user, you're bad for society, blah, 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 and all this BS. But we both know that every society has people that struggle to cope and to deal with, and everybody has some bad luck sometimes. I've slept on the streets, maybe only for a few nights, but I know what it's like to be homeless. I know it's really, really bad that anyone, many of us, especially in the West, are one paycheck away from being homeless. Now that's a statistic. That is well-known piece of information. So we all can fall on hard times. And when we fall on hard times, so we get desperate. We get desperate to help our friends, our families, our loved ones. We do desperate, stupid things. And sometimes that leads to bad decisions. Those bad decisions can lead to poor mental health. And then we self-medicate ourselves, whether you're on coffee or whether you're on sugar or you're on something to try and keep you happy and buzzed and keeping away from those bad, horrible, negative feelings, all right? Suppressing that dark side of ourselves. So I try hard. I do try very hard not to judge people that use drugs, because often it is a combination of circumstances that have led to that area. I'm sure anybody on drugs now would be quite happily accept if you gave them lots of money and got them cleaned up and helped them with their family and a job. They'd be like, yeah, No, but a lot of these people have fallen through the net, fallen through the safety net of society, of counsellors and the GP and the social workers and all the things in place to help prevent people being homeless. Now, as I said, it's unfortunate we have some people that fall through that net. So, getting back on topic, these people, often in Israel and Portugal, now have the support because the government have moved money, that they had the foresight, they had the smartness, the mentality to think, a lot of these people are not wanting to be in prison. They haven't done stuff because they want to rob banks. They've done it because they're in a bad situation and desperate. And so they do desperate things. So the people that make the decisions in the governments in Israel and Portugal took this money and put it into rehabilitation, support, and helping, and stopped criminalizing drugs. It's decriminalized. Now, like I said, I'm not an expert, so I don't know which drugs are illegal, which drugs are not illegal. But generally, if you're consuming drugs, it's to suppress the bad and dark side of your life. And so you need help. Okay, so that's kind of like Portugal and Israel and their attitudes towards it and how they work to support their society, those vulnerable people in society that have kind of fallen through the safety net. So what else have we got down here? But yes, there are negative effects for society. There's often people that are using alcohol to help them through the bad days. And again, they often make bad decisions, especially when they're angry or upset, and they may cause a disturbance to the peace by shouting and arguing with other people or getting into fights and things like that, because like I said, they're desperate people trying to make good their life, and often there's contention with police or other people in society that have not fallen into those cracks. So sometimes there is a bad part of society that we often turn away from. We look away, we shy away, and we don't want to engage and help. All right. Positive effects for the environment. Well, like I said before, the cannabis plants were very useful and very easy to grow and very hardy. They just need lots and lots of sunlight. So I guess some of the positive effects for the environment, not just the industry generating more jobs and more money, especially in places like America and Amsterdam, but the plant itself could be utilized and replace some other things that we're using at the moment that are less beneficial to the environment, such as some of these plastics maybe. All right, okay. We talked about other countries. Some other countries don't have that positive outlook. Some are still very, very down on drugs. And some of the fines and offences are and what's the word I'm looking for? Punishments are disproportionate to the crime. So, for example, I understand like Cambodia and Thailand and places like this, that if you get caught trafficking drugs or carrying drugs more than a personal allowance, then you can spend a long time in prison. And in some countries, you can get whipped and beaten and maybe even lose your hands or other heinous crimes. Madness, this 21st century. Okay. So what about the psychological and long-term effects? Psychological and long-term effects of cannabis, marijuana. Now, there's a lot of different views and opinions. And from my experience and from my understanding, what I've seen, that long-term use of marijuana can have some detrimental effects to your mind. I know it's supposed to calm and relax you, but if you got calm and relaxed too much, surely you'd lose your motivation and your will to move forward. And if by some misfortunate circumstances, you're a person that has a proclivity towards depression, then losing motivation and being very, very relaxed and not wanting to do something because it's medicating the bad part of your life where you don't want to think about, then I think long-term use of cannabis, much like alcohol or any stimulant, can have some real bad negative effects. I mean, even coffee, you look at coffee, long-term use of coffee over decades can really mess up your adrenaline and those balance of those hormones and glands because of the constant stimulation. So personally, I try to drink as much decaffeinated tea as possible. Right, let's stay on topic a little bit. So psychological and long-term use effects, often quite bad, quite negative. Right, we also talked about it being an addiction, it being a bit of a crutch, the same as alcohol and other stimulants. All right then, so going back to the industries, like I said, there's bongs, there are pipes, there's grinders. Now, if you don't know, grinder is almost like two little shells with little spikes in it. Well, not spikes, but evened off spikes, and they help break up the buds and the cannabis into smaller bits that you can break down and put into your extra large rollie to smoke. All right. I said, yeah, there's lots of merchandising for that. So what about the future of marijuana? The future of marijuana, well, you look at America now, they've legalized it in some states. Now, whether they've delegalized it so they can stop arresting many people and stop ruining young people's lives that are experimenting with a spliff, I'm not sure exactly, but it's gave birth to a whole new industry in parts of America. It's really quite interesting, and to watching this change and this evolution of decriminalizing and declassifying cannabis, marijuana in some of these counties or states in America. There seems to be a lot of money sort of thrown into it in growing in farms, especially if you've got a medical certificate as well. So there's a bit of crime going on there in regards to making medical certificates to sell. All right, but as to the future of marijuana, I'm not sure. It seems to be sticking around. It's lasted a long time. Now, I think some of that lasting a long time and it being a low-level drug has to do with cultural identity. Now, marijuana and cannabis isn't really a cultural thing connected with your normal Western culture. But if you look at cultural identity of the Rastafarian, you know, like the likes of Bob Marley or Snoop Dogg or you know, the African American, I don't know, proclivity to like that as part of their culture. It's very interesting. So just for an example, if you're a Sikh and you wear a turban, now, like I said, I'm not an expert. Please forgive me if I get this wrong. Put something down in the comments. In the UK, if you're wearing a turban, you don't have to wear a motorcycle helmet. And likewise, if you're this religion that carries the little dagger, I know it's rounded at the end and you can't really do a lot of damage with it, like a ceremonial dagger, then you can wear that in many places in the UK. Because, you know, it's not really a danger, but it's part of the culture, part of the, the culture for those people. Now, is cannabis, marijuana, culturally enshrined in the Rastafarian culture? Interesting topic. You could debate that a long time. So, but that has brought it, I think that is what brought it into the UK. Like I said, it's a low-level drug, but is that the gateway to other drugs? You could argue that all day long, all day long. Now, personally, I think it depends on society and whether society as a whole accepts a small level of rebelliousness. Now, personally, I think it's healthy to find yourself, to find who you are, and experiment with lots of different things. But even experimenting has its downsides. There are people taking a drug once and died. I hear this quite often with gas. So in the UK, you can buy a small gas canister to fill up your gas lighter. And so young people will use their gas bottle, or it used to be Lynx deodorant, and they put a tea towel over the end and they inhale the gas, and it makes them buzz and gives them a high. But unfortunately, the cold air in that compressed can make your lungs collapse. If your lung collapse, you're in a very, very dangerous situation. So even one time trying out this gas can be very, very harmful and detrimental and even cause death. So experimenting, I think, is a good thing, but it has to be done with some informed decisions. You have to make these informed decisions. You have to know what you're taking. You have to know what are the possible side effects. So you and I know that you wouldn't go driving after smoking some joints, some spliffs, because you'd be floating home and high. You wouldn't want to drive. You're compromised. Your ability to see and perceive things and action of speed reflexes are compromised. And so as an adult, it would be unwise and unsafe to drive. But many young people, youth and teenagers, they don't have that experience and that knowledge to be able to make these decisions. They often don't make good decisions, partly because of their rebellious nature to push the boundaries. So yes, experimenting is a good idea, to experiment with your who you are. But I think it should be, if you're going down the route of drugs, I think it should be very much informed and be very aware of what you're taking before you do take it. Should the government get involved? Should the government legalize it? Should the government put health warnings on the side of it and tax it? I don't know the answers. I really don't. It's a difficult situation. Let me know what you think in the comments below. What's it like in your culture? What drugs, what things do they use in your culture? Because right now, like I say, things are changing all the time. Things are changing now. Right now, marijuana is a little less prevalent, and more so these little CO2 gas canisters of helium. So you can buy them from lots of different shops that sell party clothes and party things and balloons, and it's for making the helium balloons float and rise. So these young people are puncturing the bottle and inhaling it, laughing and becoming high. But they also have side effects. Sometimes you'll see on the ground, when you park your car or in a park, a big pile of these metal little tubes. I mean, at least they could do is put them in the bin. There you go. Yeah, very, very contentious topic. Marijuana, drugs, expressing yourself, finding yourself. Interesting. It could go many different ways. Right then. So my conclusion is, and my thoughts, is more about education, educating our young people. Because I feel and I hope that many young people experiment, find themselves, and then by the end of their early 20s, mid-20s, they've found themselves. They know who they are, they've tried things, they've done it, they bought the t-shirt, and it's not new or exciting or rebellious anymore. They've got things to do. They want to move forward with their life. So that kind of old life gets dropped and left behind as you mature and get older. So as I said, my conclusion is education is the key, and allow young people to continue to find themselves and explore and grow, get experiences.
Right, if you have any thoughts, if you have any comments, if you disagree, if you agree, let me know in the comments what you think. Tell me your experiences. All right, so that's it for now. So as always, have fun learning. If you don't have fun learning, you're not going to learn. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye for now.